This week I am joined by Sam Torres and Tory Gray, and we're talking all about JavaScript and your website migrations. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Search with Candour. I am your host, Jack Chambers-Ward, and this is the weekly podcast where I interview the best, the brightest in the SEO industry, and also talk about the news every single month as well with my co-host Mark Williams-Cook. This week I am joined by perhaps the most requested guests in my 2.5 a bit years of hosting this podcast. I am joined by the duo behind the Grey Company, Sam Torres and Tory Gray. If you are in the SEO industry, which if you're watching or listening to this, you probably are, you probably have heard of Sam and Tory and all the fantastic work they do around technical SEO, the webinars, the series, the podcast appearances, the talks that they've done, all that kind of stuff. And it is a real pleasure to finally sit down and have a conversation with two people I have followed for a very long time and who inspire me with their technical knowledge as well. Of course, please do like and subscribe. If you haven't already, you can press like down below. That will hugely help the podcast spread out and get caught up in YouTube's algorithm and spread the word there. If you want to keep up to date and catch every single episode as it comes out every Monday morning here in the UK time, please do subscribe. You can follow us on Spotify. You can follow us on Apple Podcasts as well. Of course, please rate and review and all that kind of stuff as well. That hugely helps us basically grow this show, get more guests, and do more cool stuff. Because I don't know if you noticed, a couple of weeks ago, Mark and I were talking about the plans. I've got some big plans for this year. We're going to be a very busy podcast happening. So stay tuned for very exciting things, including another live Brighton podcast crossover with the SEO Mindset crew of Sarah and Tasman. And I'll actually be filming around the conference itself as well. So stay tuned for basically on the show floor interviews, quizzes and questions and all that kind of stuff coming up after Brighton SEO, which is happening on the 10th and 11th of April 2025. So stay tuned for all sorts of cool content coming up over the next couple of months and some amazing guests as well, as you've come to expect. Anyway, I will not waste any more of your time and let's get to our conversation with Sam and Tory. And of course, before that, a word from our sponsors.
Sarah here.
And me, Tasman.
And me, Jack.
And we're all here today because we have some pretty exciting news to share with you all.
We certainly do. Who wants to do the honours?
Tasman, I reckon you've got this one.
Yeah, I reckon so too. Tasman, go ahead. You have the honours.
Right, here goes then. After 4 successful live podcasts, we are back again. That's right, this is the 5th live podcast that we're doing. Search with Candour and the SEO My podcast are teaming up yet again to record a podcast in front of a live audience.
It's becoming a bit of a Brighton SEO tradition, it feels like, 5 times, and you can join us for a raw and authentic conversation about how to build your personal brand. We'll be discussing what this means, why it's important, and sharing practical advice and tips and our own experiences as well.
Wow, it's pretty jam-packed, right? And it's all free to attend. And there's going to be pizza, snacks and drinks included, again, for free. When's it happening? The night before Brighton SEO at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, the 9th of April, 2025. Tickets are now up for grabs. And last time we sold out. So if you're interested in joining us, grab your tickets now before they all go. No one wants that awful FOMO feeling.
And you can help us spread the word as well. Please do tell your friends, tell your colleagues. You don't even have to necessarily have a Brighton SEO ticket to attend. Just if you're in Brighton on the 9th of April 2025, you can come along and join us. The more the merrier.
So we'll be popping a link in the show notes so you can get all the information you need and grab your ticket. We're really looking forward to seeing you on the night.
My guests this week are two of the most requested and recommended guests in the history of Search with Candour. I can only apologise that it's taken me this long. They are the dynamic duo driving the success of the world-renowned SEO consultancy, the Grey Company. They have been featured in some of the very best marketing conferences, podcasts, webinars, publications, and everything in between. They were brought together via the women in tech SEO community. Shout out to Reed and Erin and the amazing women in tech SEO community. A love of books, a love of gin, and most importantly, alignment on business values. I'll kick off with my first guest. Despite being American, she hails from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. She brings a combination of strategy, knowledge, and kindness to her years of experience in digital marketing. We share a love of XKCD and the X-Files. She is the CEO and founder of the Grey Dot Company. Welcome to the show, Tori Gray.
Thank you so much for having me. We'll have to talk X-Files sometimes.
We will definitely have to do that. And next, hailing from Atlanta, Georgia, she combines the creative flair, technical expertise, and a holistic approach from her years of experience in digital marketing. We share a love of JRPGs. Shout out to Xenogears, by the way, and board games. She is the Chief Digital Officer at Grey Dot Company. And today, the release for the podcast, the 10th of March, is her birthday. Welcome to the show and happy birthday, Sam Torres.
Thank you so much. Yeah, 29 again, right? That's what we're going to go with?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just kidding. 37. It's going to be a good year.
Something like that. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
But thank you both for finally joining me. I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass by saying you are the most recommended and requested. I have had so many people say, oh, you need to hang out with Tori. So many people who have met you guys. Oh, I've spoke to Sam the other day. You really need to bring her on the podcast. I have been thinking about contacting you guys for so long. I know I've hung out with Begum, who you've done SEO Opinionated Opinions with so many times. And it was just this like, finally, let's make things happen. I know I contacted you guys a little while ago and like, yes, let's talk about it. Let's get into migrations and JavaScript because, we're going to get technical. We're going to get, I think, pretty, maybe not controversial, but I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. That's for sure.
We have opinions, and we're not shy with them, especially on this topic. So
Yeah.
it might be helpful. We'll see how it goes.
There we go. That's what we've got you here for. Exactly. Like I said, I want your SEO opinions. So I guess we'll kick things off with perhaps if somebody doesn't know what could possibly go wrong with JavaScript in migrations, maybe some of the common issues that people might find, because I know I've done a fair few site migrations in my time, but JavaScript is definitely not my area of expertise. And perhaps that might be the same for the viewers and listeners at home. Is there anything that kind of springs to mind as the most common things you might encounter when it comes to JavaScript and migrations?
So I think to start, it's a migration. So it's still, I'd say like the most common ones are still the ones that are not JavaScript specific. So like no redirects is a common one, or your staging environment is getting indexed before you actually push it live, right? Those are probably the ones we see, maybe like younger brands, the kind of mistakes that they typically make.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some of the things that we definitely see when you are migrating to a JavaScript solution, or even from one JavaScript front end to another, usually what happens is requirements aren't built out for your SEO global data, meta tags, things like that. Redirects being offered through JavaScript instead of actually serving proper 301s or 308s, whichever flavor you decide you want to do. There's a lot of times that developers are like, no, it's a redirect. It's fine, right? Because to them, it's functioning exactly what
every redirect is the same, right? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. It's not, but they're not SEO experts, so why would they know that? The other, though, I would say, and Tori, feel free to interject wherever you disagree with me, but I would say with JavaScript sites, not understanding how the rendering process is changing.
Yep.
Or how it's making your content less available or more available.
Yep.
That's really kind of the biggest problem with any kind of JavaScript-based site. But yeah, we usually see there's just blind spots, especially around migration.
Yeah, I mean, by the time, if you're doing a migration, you're probably already in front of like the big full stop issues in terms of like, hey, do you have unique URLs? That is usually not a problem in a migration, but it can be a problem with a JavaScript site. Or like, are you using hashes for your URLs? Because those are not unique URL variations as far as Google is concerned. So that doesn't count. So I'd say the other ones we run into all the time, just in JavaScript audits and migrations too, are whoops, my links aren't real links. We're using, on clicks, we're using router links, we're using things that are like functionally links in an app. If you're in like a mobile app on your phone, you don't need it to change the URL. You're just doing things. Those are all like valid ways to move users throughout an app or a site, but Google doesn't recognize it as a link unless it's an href, obviously. So I'd say that's the big one. A similar thing can happen with images, where sometimes they're using like CSS or other ways to deliver those images instead of with an IMG. Or just like weird, oh, we don't have metadata. Or we don't have metadata somehow on mobile, or like there's weird stuff like that. Or to Sam's point, I think the other big blockbuster issue that we often do run into is the whoops, my content's just not accessible, period. Even upon rendering. Or then you're having like the conversation of like, is this content okay it must be rendered? Or are we going to require it to be in the response HTML or not? Like, how important is that to the page? How important is the page? These are the kinds of debates that we have. Those are the big
And
ones.
also, is JavaScript changing some of these really important fields?
Oh, that's a good one.
Is the canonical changing once JavaScript has been rendered?
Yeah.
Versus, or like we also with hreflang implementations using JavaScript sites, we see that change pretty often.
Yep.
If they're not using like a server-side rendering or similar solution, we'll see, like I say, those big signals that really are telling Google whether or not this page is worth their time. Yep. That changes, and I think ultimately just reduces the trust. But those are the common things that we see happening. And I think a lot of it, again, just comes to documentation for developers, SEO-wise, isn't super accessible or really pushed for the dev team. And so I think the SEO team sometimes has a hard time, though, creating all of that. Here's my requirements for everything that needs to happen on the site. Because for most of us, we came into SEO from a marketing perspective and not from a product management perspective. And so I think it's part of the discipline of learning. But yeah, those are some of the common things that we see.
Yeah,
definitely.
You don't want your meta robots to suddenly be a no index when you didn't expect it to be. Right? And that does happen. Like, whoops, we accidentally. And Google's supposed to only pay attention, right? In first wave indexing, they're supposed to only look to the response HTML. But if they see it, they're going to respect it. And so just weird stuff will happen when you conflict like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's that. I've had my first experience with a single page application a couple of months ago, actually. And it was this delightful thing of like, yeah, thank you. Commiserations, right? Like, and it was like, oh, all of the URLs are just changing. I was like, I know I'd heard of like dynamic URL changes and non-static URLs. I was like, okay, that's pretty weird. And then I looked at it, and all of the title tags were the same as the homepage, even when you seemingly changed it in the back end. After a few seconds, they reverted back around to the just home brand name. I was like, oh, for God's sake, like, what's going on here?
That's a weird issue.
Yeah. We had no idea. we had some fun digging around there and trying to work out what was going on. Turns out it was a JavaScript issue. And there was a funny thing. I know Mark Williams-Cook, my co-host and boss here at Canada, was talking to Martin Splitt a little while ago, speaking of JavaScript. And it was a funny thing where like Martin did a talk at Search Orange. It was like, if you come to me with your JavaScript problems, 99 times out of 100, they are not a JavaScript problem. They're a you problem. And he said, unless the one exception is you, Mark, where you actually sent me a real JavaScript problem. And I was like, aha, I know that website he's talking about.
Well, I would argue it is a JavaScript problem. It's a JavaScript implementation problem. You did it wrong.
Well, yeah.
Like, it's a user error, right? Like, you built it wrong in a way that Google says doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think there's that. I feel like trying to explain JavaScript, and like I said, I'm very early in my JavaScript journey compared to you guys. I'm definitely not the most technical SEO, but like explaining it to non-technical people is like, it does all the cool interactive stuff on a website, right? It's like, yeah, but it can do all of this interesting stuff in the back end. You mentioned canonicals and hreflangs and all that kind of like server-side rendering versus client-side rendering, all this kind of stuff that I think a lot of us kind of just take for granted if we're so used to just, it's standard CMS, working with HTML, we'll be fine. And perfect example you mentioned earlier, Tori, like the CSS stuff you'll hit. And I was like, oh, none of these images have any limitations on them at all. So they just render at full resolution and just take over the page. I was like, okay, it's the entire screen size of every image. And some of them are really high resolution, some of them are tiny, some of them are bigger. And it was just this crazy like mishmash collage of images. I'm like, what is this?
That's Mexico.
Okay. Yeah,
that's
that's a
what it
CSS
is.
problem.
Yeah.
as a developer, I'm gonna call that out as like someone didn't really do their job, but that's okay. But
We don't know
I
them.
will
We
also
can throw shade.
yeah. But I will also say one of the things to know, I think, like to set expectations with our clients pretty regularly when moving to a JS site is if you are a person who likes to look at their crawl settings in GSC like we are. I think we probably live in there maybe a little more than we should. But you do typically start to see like your JSON, like when you're looking at what are the types of docs that or documents that Google's crawling, you'll see the JSON kind of explode. And I would say maybe about 7 times out of 10, totally fine, totally normal, everything's good. The other 3 times out of 10, something might be wrong with like the build process or the API, because there's definitely APIs happening between where the content is housed in the front end. And so there's just a lot happening. And especially if you are a SaaS company, so there's actually an app behind your website, things like that, it can start to actually blow up and take over your entire crawl budget. Like we've seen sites that had maybe 4,000 pages and over 100,000 JSON requests because these API issues. So that is one to kind of, you don't know to look for it until you're like, something's broken, something's wrong. How do I find it? So yeah, trying to spread the knowledge of that's something to definitely look at if you're finding issues.
I think a lot of those things are there. You don't know it's a problem until it's a problem, and then you need to go and investigate. Right? I think that's a lot of the fun. I say the fun of migration seems like a kind of paradox there, right? Like to many people, but I think that's a lot of it where you get into that detective mode of like, okay, time to problem solve. I know the images aren't working, and I know there's this thing that is controlling the images. So what is going wrong? And like you said, just digging into the code, digging into the side of it, I find so interesting and fun, even when it's super stressful and oh god, we need to launch in 3 days time, freak out time.
Yeah.
But
They are just such fun, weird problems, and you're just like, what in the world is happening, or how did they do this? What? Yeah, it's also it's
Oh yeah, the
software.
number of times we've seen something and I'm just like, I don't even know how I would code something to do that.
right.
Like that's just kind of incredible, but huh? Why?
Impressively bad almost.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, it's
But
software.
yeah.
Like it breaks, it's weird, it can be built. Sometimes you have to do this hacky thing to make it work, to work around things. And so like things can just get ugly or weird or fascinating. It's a brave new world. I love it.
Yeah. Really.
And you guys mentioned migrating to a JavaScript platform from a more standard CMS stuff. That's something I've actually not experienced before. I've only kind of done like bringing on straight away with an SPA or CMS kind of stuff. What are the kind of things where you would kind of consider that? Is there a particular sort of business case, or is it the dreaded SEO thing of it depends? Like, is it time to start the drinking game?
Um, So I mean, like all things, I'd pull up and say like SEOs are usually not making the platform decisions, right? Like SEOs are usually following the business decided to do this. Oh crap! Now I have to deal with it, which is the 100% of the time with an SPA. Like an SEO would never choose to have an SPA.
Or at least I hope not.
It's not built
That-
to be a website. It's built to be an
Yeah.
app. Like there's things you can do. There's things you can do to make it better. Don't get me wrong. But like, would you ever go out of your way to do an SPA period? No. Like, I mean, if you're building an internal tool, if you're building an app, like it's a perfectly valid software. Don't get me wrong. But from an SEO public facing website for marketing purposes, like it's not the tool you want. I mean, developers like to build things and sometimes they're like, I just really, really love this tool and I want to use it because I think it's cool. And like, that's how the decision to move the platform changes. And like, I've seen e-commerce websites on SPAs and it's so ugly. It's so bad and it does not work. And I'm sorry, so stop building SPAs for those use cases. But SPAs are like one particular flavor of JavaScript platform, right? Like there's plenty of JavaScript platforms that are not. And I think there are a lot more valid use cases for other JavaScript platforms. So I think Sam probably wants to talk about that. So I don't want to steal her thunder.
No, you're totally fine. So going back to, when are you going from a more traditional CMS solution like a WordPress, right, to JavaScript? So I would say, and full disclosure, I have been in this camp of I love JavaScript front ends. I love the idea of a headless CMS for a while. Like I stopped doing any kind of WordPress development probably 5 or 6 years ago because I was just so done with PHP. And it was really frustrating that we kept doing all these things in WordPress development and plugins and all that to break the default or the native functionality of WordPress. I'm like, why don't we do something different? Which I guess could also be how I feel about JavaScript, but that's probably a soapbox for another day. But really, it's about, to me, it's the separation of the content from the actual experience, which, at that point you're using specialization. So I actually really like that. So some of the biggest projects, it was WordPress, and now they're just changing the front end because how many editors, marketing teams, content teams are used to the WordPress editor, but if you try to introduce anything else, their head might explode. So you're just rebuilding the front end. So the reasons why you would want to do that. So typically JavaScript based front ends, as long as they're actually got the functionalities that you need, are typically much more performant than anything that, WordPress is PHP based. So that means anytime you're trying to load anything, a call is made to the server. That gets really slow pretty quickly, right? So usually they're higher performance. That's also when you have a headless CMS is when you start being able to have really it's just the content management. And now you can be presenting that content in all different kinds of modalities. So instead of being focused only on a website, you might also be able to use the same CMS for writing your ad copy, for sending out emails, for sending alerts and push notifications to your app users on their watches or their phones. All of that could actually go into one place. So for larger enterprise companies where you are thinking about that omni-channel content workflow and how do you keep it consistent and how do you make sure every piece of content goes through the same approval process? If you're actually using a true CMS that is only focused on managing that content, then that enables you to do it. So like I said, kind of a soapbox, and obviously I'm very biased. But I think it's a way to be able to scale. And the other piece of that is if you want to change the look and feel, it's not a migration of content every time, right? Because if you wanted to change the theme for a WordPress, usually it ends up being like this huge content migration in addition to the theme writing. Now all I'm doing is essentially rewriting the theme, but my content doesn't have to change. I don't have to worry about migrating that. I don't have to worry about moving, because I will say with any kind of migration, we see that go wrong pretty often. Content just doesn't come over cleanly. So yeah, I think there's some real use cases, and hopefully we'll see more of it.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, JavaScript is rich and lush, and it creates amazing content experiences and website experiences for users. And that is going to, impact how people feel about your brand, and like their interaction with you as a company overall. And those things will help your SEO indirectly, right? But brand helps SEO. We want to be great brands. We want to grow brands. It's important today, and it's becoming more important, it feels like, every single day. And JavaScript can help us get there. There are some SEO kind of stepping stones or barriers or boxes to check, just like anything else in the world, but it is very possible to have an extremely performant site on a JavaScript platform. It's absolutely possible.
Enthusiastic nodding. Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a real angle to that I hadn't even considered until you guys mentioned it, was that the brand side of it. And I think it's been a conversation I've had so much throughout 2024. It's continuing into 2025 on the podcast as well, where you talk about alignment across channels. You talk about not working with SEO in a silo. I know you guys know this. I know a lot of the listeners of viewers know this, but this has been the conversation that is ongoing for the last, I feel, few years or so, but certainly the last year on this podcast. And then this being like bringing a headless CMS where you can, like you said, push to all these different things at the same time from the same place, really allows you to unify that stuff, as you said, Sam. And then, as you said, Tori, it gets to look really cool and be more interactive. And I'm sure you guys sometimes feel the same, where you go to a website, it's like, oh, this looks like it was built in 1998. Cool. Yeah,
That's
right.
fun. Sometimes you want the retro
Yeah.
experience. That's a thing
Yeah,
as
The
well.
yeah.
Space
Some
Jam
people do it on
website,
purpose.
the
Not
fact
for
that the
everyone.
Space Jam website still lives as it was in 1997, I love it. Yeah, or 1999. I don't remember what year
Let's
it
all
was.
bring our MySpace profiles back. We'll be extremely.
Where's Tom? He did it right.
The one tech billionaire we can still trust is Tom from
Yeah,
MySpace. I
and
think
we
he
are
just
all
he just
aging
went off
ourselves
and
right now.
he just went off and became a photographer. I think he just made all of his money and then was like, I'm a travel photographer now. See you later. I was like,
Why
good for
wouldn't
you,
you?
Tom.
Just go enjoy
Yeah,
your
rather
money.
than
Donate.
trying
Like,
to take over the world like all the other ones, apparently.
mm,
Anyway, we don't have time to get onto that. but
oh man.
but that having that modern feel to a site, and as you said, Tori, as a brand as a whole, makes you feel more modern and more relevant, and maybe because we are techie minded, we are SEO people, we're marketing people, but I think that subconsciously reflects to people who aren't even in this industry as well, right? Even if your customers are not necessarily marketing people or technically knowledgeable people, just having a thing that feels fast and moves nicely. And
Yeah.
I was showing a friend of mine who's like a local owns a one person local business, and I was talking to him about his website, which is on WordPress, by the way, speaking of which. And he's like, oh, I've got some real problems. I'm like, is it plugins? He's like, yes, it's plugins. Like, yeah, I guessed it was bloody plugins. Of course it was.
Yeah.
How
Plugin
many
after plugin
analytics
after
plugins do you have running at the same time? 3? Oh, brilliant, excellent, lovely. We've got the GA4 one, we've got some
27.
other one, and also Monster Insights as well. I was like, okay, cool. No, don't need that. That was
Yeah.
fun. And then I showed him a headless CMS stuff. I showed him Storyblock, and I was like, oh, check out this thing and look at this thing. I was like, look how this moves. And he was like, I didn't know you could have it like where the image like swoops in over the cross and stuff. I was like, yeah, and that's just a content block essentially. Like it's a super simple thing to do.
Yeah.
But compared to static image gallery and like carousels and stuff, it's like,
Yeah.
this feels like a website from this century rather than the last
Yeah.
one.
I mean, you want happy users. At the end of the day, you can bring some of that surprise and delight, right? Like, make people happy.
Yeah.
We don't talk enough about surprise and delight in UX. I feel like that's something we should talk about more. Add that to like the pillars of like accessibility and all that kind of crawlability, discoverability. Surprise and delight needs to be something we're focusing on for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's so important.
So,
like the little touches.
Yeah, exactly. I for me, and again, me being a nerd and all that kind of stuff, maybe I'm an outlier here, but it's that attention to detail and those little touches that make a huge difference to me. When I see somebody like a brand or a company or whatever it is saying, walking the walk and talking the talk in the same way, and then you go and see their thing of like, okay, yeah, they seem to actually know what they're talking about. Especially, and not to call out any specific people or anything like that, I've been on other agencies' websites that are built like shit as well, so that's always fun.
I mean, don't look at our
Like,
website right now. We've been in a migration. We've been in redesign for like 2 years at this point, so we are
hey,
launching soon.
so have we. So have we.
Yeah, it's the age-old problem of your own internal marketing is always what's get pushed, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I was literally on the Canada staging site earlier today. I was like, I think this was supposed to go live like the end of last year.
Yeah, by
I've
the
been at
time
Wembley
this
for
goes
3.5
live,
years.
our new website should be live, which is also built with skill block.
I will say the same thing. So yeah, that counts, right? Yeah. We not that I have any influence over the Canada website, but let's commit. Like,
we're doing this. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, like migrating from framework to framework, right? Like I'm again, my knowledge isn't hugely deep here, but I've had some experience with talking to developers who particularly work in like React or Angular and all this kind of stuff. Like from your experience, what are some of the reasons to go from one to the other? Are there particular kind of benefits, or is it again case by case kind of basis? Is it dependent on the kind of experience you want for your users?
So 9 times out of 10, it's to what Tori was talking about earlier. It's really a decision outside of the SEO department. And typically, if I'm seeing a company change the framework or change the language base, because React, Angular, they're all JavaScript based, but they're obviously their own unique flavor of JavaScript.
Yeah.
That typically happens if we see a change in engineering leadership.
Oh yeah.
And then ultimately a change in engineering talent. So it really just goes to kind of what focus or what really is the skill set of the engineering team that you have. I would say for most of them, and I'm sure I'll have trolls throwing things at me. For website purposes, let me caveat it with that.
Public website purposes.
They can kind of all do what you need them to do. So there's not like, it isn't like if you're e-commerce, you have to use React, Angular, and Svelte will not work. No, that's total, that none of that is true. So it really just comes down to what is the talent, what's the skill set that you have on your team, who's your engineering partner. If you don't have the dev in-house, that's really what it usually comes down to. I will say about 3 years ago, I probably saw pretty even spread across Vue versus Angular versus React. But I think React is coming out very much on top.
Yeah.
And I think we probably saw quite a spread because it was new and it was exciting and it was the shiny thing. And so kind of what Tori was talking about earlier of, oh, I just want to do this because this is fun. By the way, I'm totally guilty of that as well. So calling myself out.
We're guilty of that as a whole industry, I think. Absolutely.
Actually, you're so right. Yeah. But yeah, it usually just comes down to what does the engineering team want to do.
There can be some like functional differences, but they're always like very engineering based, like based on like the architecture of you want it to be this, you want it to plug into this, you need it to do these at scale. That can mean this tool is better than this tool. So like, it's just way above my pay grade. But my partner's a dev, so and he works on apps and React stuff. So I'm just like, I don't know what that means, but it sounds smart. Cool. Okay, good. And again, they just come to us and they're like, this is what we're doing. And we say, okay, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
There.
And again, it comes back around to another recurring theme of the podcast, I guess, is having that conversation and having that communication, right? If you're going in completely blind, you're going to be in trouble. Have that conversation with the external developers or the internal team or whoever it is you need to speak to. Speak to the engineers, speak to the developers, and understand, okay, what are you guys working with? What's your preferred thing? How can we help you make the most out of this? Again, coming back to that no silo stuff, like we should all be working together, especially if it's, and this is the most combative of cases where it's an external agency developing and an external SEO agency. It's like, okay, fine, we've got to fight this out now, and
that can get interesting.
We're all on the same team. Like we're trying to help the client. Like you would think it would be nice and easy, but yeah, it's not as easy as it sounds.
No, it's not always. And like, developers, like everyone else in the world, can be very lazy, or sometimes they just don't know things. And I think we put developers on this pedestal of just like, they know so much more than we do. And I'm scared to say things. Like, there are junior developers too. There are senior developers. Sometimes senior developers tell you things are not possible because they weren't 2 years ago and they haven't Googled, but based on their knowledge, just SEOs do that, right? Like technology changes. It's hard to keep up on all the different things. But like being respectful and kind and like presenting it like that, like, do you say like, no, you're wrong and I'm going to send you the documentation to prove it? Or do you be like, oh, actually, it's great. That totally changed X, pretty recently. Like the framing,
I shouldn't be responding that way. Oh, okay. Kidding.
You guys do you want to guys have an internal meeting and I'll just log off for a bit and you just have a chat? Sam, I think we have some communication issues. We've had some reports from some clients that you're just talking. It's really awkward that we happen to have to do this on the podcast.
Right?
But,
yeah. Well, I'm glad
drama gets clicks, so it works for me.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Thankfully, so it's funny you bring that up because we actually work with other vendors for our clients pretty often. That's actually one of the things we talk about as a selling prop for us, is that we can play nicely with others. And I think that's honestly when it's the same. It's the same as what makes a good client relationship, right? When the client actually takes a step back and is like, I am paying you to be my SEO expert, so I'm going to let you do that. I think taking the same kind of stance of, you are the dev expert, so I'm going to let you take that. Here's what I know and how can I knowledge share.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to lean on you. So.
But that's also the highest compliment whether it's the internal dev team or the external dev team, when they want to bring you on other projects because you won them over, because you have that simpatico. Like I love that. That's the biggest one.
Yeah. The referrals or the times we're brought in by the head of product or the head of engineering.
I love it.
Those are usually good.
Status.
That's what you want.
Yes.
Yeah. That's when you know you're doing things right and you're
Seriously.
you don't have communication problems. You're actually talking to people nicely. Exactly. And I think it seems like such an obvious thing. And again, it feels like not working in silos and all this kind of stuff seems so obvious, but it does seem to be a thing we are hopefully moving in the right direction as an industry. It feels like,
We're growing up.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
We're maturing a little bit as an industry,
Yeah,
right? It
our
feels like
industry is growing up. Because considering, us here with 14, 15 years and we're like the old guys, we're such a
weird.
baby industry.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy to think that I have this conversation with my wife who's been a nurse for years and years and just kind of like, oh yeah, this is a completely different concept of the matters of life and death and all this
Yeah,
kind
I
of
was gonna
stuff.
say,
And I
do
was
you
like,
just feel inadequate all the time?
yes,
Because you're not
yes,
curing
I do.
cancer.
yeah.
So not only do I feel inadequate, my wife was one of the ward managers of the first COVID ward in our city.
Oh,
So I'm just like, well, I helped a website launch 3 days ago, and it went okay. We only
I hope
had 3
some dude
broken
make a lot of
redirects.
money.
Right? I helped somebody
Oh,
else
bless
make
their
loads of
heart.
money.
Whew.
I interviewed 6 people this week. It's crazy. Like, isn't that? My contributions are so significant. No. But having those conversations, like you said, this being such a young industry, and that, I guess, the growing knowledge and the kind of technical acceptance, especially we're talking about the younger generations as well, like people just being aware of this kind of stuff, of how the internet works, how websites work. I think there's been some reports the other way around where a lot of like Gen Z and Gen Alpha have no idea how anything works, and everything's just like, it's just on a tablet and it's just fine because
Yeah.
they don't have the concept of the time before. I'm old enough, and
Yeah.
no offense, I know you guys are as well, to remember a time before the internet, right? Of like,
Yep.
oh, I remember getting my first phone and first smartphone, and us having one computer in the upstairs like back room
Yeah.
of my house, and being like,
And
oh
also,
my
if
god,
someone got on the phone line,
Yeah.
suddenly you were no longer
oh,
on the
that
internet.
dial-up.
Booted off. It was so annoying.
There's a reason the theme song is dial-up modem for this very podcast, like, because Mark and I are old enough to remember that stuff.
Yeah, I played that once for my son, and he was like, "What is that? Why?"
Oh, it's like nails against a chalkboard, right? It's
God.
horrible, but nostalgic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Love it.
And to kind of get on that kind of broader industry kind of thing, I think a lot of people have been talking about a lot about JavaScript recently. I know there's been a lot of chatter about the issues potentially with a lot of the LLMs and AI search engine stuff, so ChatGPT search, Perplexity, all that kind of stuff, having issues with JavaScript. And I'm going to kind of try and pull you guys in 2 different directions here of a will they, won't they kind of thing. Not necessarily try and make you guys fight, but we will see. There's definitely that. Well, yeah, exactly. I'm picking you guys against me for sure. But there's definitely I don't know, a worry from a lot of people to then think like, oh, well, if AI is the future of search, we're seeing this continued disinterest in Google and distrust in Google and all this kind of stuff, especially with some of the legal ramifications and not getting into all of that stuff, but potentially the decline of Google as we know it, and so many of these other competitors coming up. There's the element of like, how do they handle JavaScript? Because JavaScript rendering is so much more taxing and expensive than your standard crawling that a lot of what the AI search engine is doing. How do you see this as the future of search and how JavaScript ties into that? Because I feel like I'm speaking to Patrick from Sitebulb last year. Seems like JavaScript is a growing interest in this industry, as exactly what we were saying. More and more people are using it, more and more people are developing with it and all this kind of stuff. But if things are shifting in a way that counteracts that, how are we going to see the kind of 2 sides of like, well, JavaScript is the future and it's cooler and more, we were saying earlier, like more modern than HTML and all this kind of stuff, and it has brilliant use cases, but then sometimes it might cause some discoverability issues. So how are you guys feeling at the moment about what that could mean for the future of search and its relationship with JavaScript?
Big question, obviously. I
Yeah.
mean, AI as a whole, I have a lot of feelings about, and most of them are very sad about the state of the world and, just the impact of all of this stuff on the environment. Like, can the Earth really afford another industrial revolution, which is what it feels
That's
like
an
we're on.
excellent question. Yeah.
And it's also like, oh, cool. So people won't have jobs. Let's build, agentic workflows and have robots do these things instead of humans, because who needs to eat anyway? So like it also feels like unavoidable, and like, how does your business stay ahead if you're not willing to do these things in the same way that the Industrial Revolution is? So I feel a little bit like a Luddite right now, in that, like, I don't want to do it. I think it's important to do, and we will continue to innovate, but it just makes me really sad, is the very transparent answer. In terms of JavaScript, that's a little bit of a different thing for me, especially considering Google's like recent announcement, right, that JavaScript will be required to use stuff, and everyone's like
Exactly.
worried that they have to have a JavaScript website. To which my biggest response is, Google's do as I say, not as I do. Google wants you to have to incur the costs of JavaScript in order to access their stuff. Do they want to have to incur the costs of doing JavaScript to get access to your information? No, they do not. Are they willing to, or do they say that they will publicly? Absolutely. Will they do it when they need to? Absolutely. But they don't want to. That is costly. So no, they'll continue to love it if you have your 1997 vanilla HTML website. As long as it's good content and users like it, engage with it, they'll be very happy. Is my
Yeah, let's bring back frames. Woo. Just kidding. Yeah, right. So yeah, I will say this is where Tori and I were talking about this before, and we are a little bit, we're not at odds, but we definitely are approaching this a little bit differently. So in short, I am less worried because of knowing how JavaScript frameworks actually work, what typically the output is. So one of the things, like, yes, LLMs or the crawlers behind them, they don't execute JavaScript.
Yeah.
But they do understand JSON, which a lot of these JavaScript-based frameworks are feeding the content that does get rendered through JSON.
Hmm.
So that is understood. And at the end of the day, all they're looking for is content. They, as far as I know right now, they don't care about what is the experience for the user like Google does. They don't care if you have white text on white text. That's something that Google cares about,
Mhm.
or their documentation says they do. Um,
Burn.
Honestly, after the leaks and everything, I'm back to it. I trust nothing I can't test.
Yeah, the bold text, I think, just really
That made me
got
so
under
angry.
our skin. Like that was
Yeah.
mean, Google. Really? That worked? That's bullshit.
Like, why does that still work? Ugh. Anyways, sorry. Then also, I do think, yeah, rendering JavaScript and the whole rendering queue, is that more expensive for Google? Absolutely. And then the amount of content that is being generated because of AI tools, it's just really making that problem it's making it much more exponentially expensive. So suddenly we can't take indexing as it's a privilege, not a right. I think it's caused us to kind of shift our perspective on those things. None of that actually that I think is ultimately bad.
Agreed.
Because it's also kind of fun to be having conversations with clients of like, we need to write unique things. We need to add unique perspectives.
Is that content
And it kind
really
of brought,
good? Is it? Is it though?
yeah. Also some hard conversations because clients are like, no, we should totally rank for this. And it's like, but should you really? But it's also been fun because it's been things like we no longer have to, I had a client who creates concrete forms for construction companies. And so at one point we had a whole blog series about the history of concrete.
This is vintage, by the way. This is not.
Yeah, this is pretty old. Yeah, this is 4 agencies ago. But like, it's really nice that we don't have to do that kind of like beginner level content, because obviously someone who cares about the history of concrete is probably not buying concrete forms. Anyways, I'm squirreling real hard. But all of that to say, is JavaScript execution more expensive? Yes. But also what we just talked about prior, it's the shiny thing that engineers want to build.
Yep.
And so the industry outside of SEO is driving that way.
Yep.
So I think there is a little bit of, normally for us, we are completely at the mercy of what Google wants to do. But I think this is a place where it's a big enough industry and they have other factors that they care about that has to influence how Google how their search team responds. So I would say I'm not as concerned. I don't think JavaScript will be going away as a valid solution.
Not at all.
Again, also LLMs still understand JSON. And at the end of the day, what we're also seeing is LLMs are running out of content to train on.
Yep.
So if we are building JavaScript websites and that's how our brands are presenting their content, then if an LLM wants to survive and wants to stay up to date and wants to continue, they will have to conform to what the industry in mass is doing. So honestly, I think it's just a matter of time before they actually start worrying about rendering.
Yeah, no, I think OpenAI will, people will be announcing that they can crawl JavaScript too.
Yeah.
Any day, literally.
Or we might see more partnerships, right? So OpenAI, obviously has the partnership with Microsoft. How are we going to see the index now and then? Like, are we going to see things mixed together there?
That might be the hot new startup you've never heard of that does the rendering work that is like the guts, those B2B sweet contracts that OpenAI pays to have the company do things for them. Totally.
Yeah, ByteDance will build that and they'll take over the world a little bit more. So, I think there's a larger enough subset of different industries influencing these decisions that if the decision is made by OpenAI, by Perplexity, by Anthropic to kind of ignore that, I think they'll end up missing out on a lot of the content that they want. Because even like some of these relationships between OpenAI and some of the news media organizations, some of those are JavaScript-based websites.
A lot of them are.
And we know because we're working on them. So I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, I mean, Tori, you compared it earlier to like the second industrial revolution, right? In an ecological way, not good. In a technological way, very interesting. And then, like you said, there's going to be that nature of, we joked earlier about sites from 25 years ago looking so much different to they do now. We're going to have that same kind of thing where these search engines, whatever they end up being called, and once that name solidifies somewhere, is going to be an evolution that we're going to see. And like you said, it's absolutely exponential at this point when it comes to the technological singularity or the future from the Terminator or the Matrix or whatever we're looking forward to in the next 10 to 15 years. But I think I know, right? But I think you're totally right. We're going to get towards that. It's so much bigger than, we live in our little SEO bubble and we think like, Google is the be all and end all. And again, I think we're all learning, if we haven't already learned that, a lot of people are learning that recently. And SEO and search engines aren't the be all and end all of the internet either. Nope. There is plenty of other stuff out there. You guys are exactly right. Like, okay, if you don't crawl JavaScript, you don't render JavaScript properly, then you're going to run into issues because that's where development is moving towards, whether you like it or not. And it's that keep up or get left behind kind of thing, right? And as kind of techie and capitalist as that sounds, that is the nature of business and technology and how this stuff moves. Speaking about Musk and Altman and all these guys that are pushing these things forward, they're going to want to get the information exactly as you guys are saying. They've got contracts with like the Associated Press and all this kind of other stuff and big publications to train their models and bring in that stuff into their search engine results, then that's going to be a thing they're going to have to do. And whether that means new premium models of Arnaut Hellmans, who I was speaking to the other day, had a brilliant idea, and it's a terrible, horrible idea, and I kind of hate it, but it kind of makes a lot of sense for the monetization of search engines going forward. And I was like, oh, I hate that sentence, but I'm intrigued because Arnaut's very clever. And I was like, okay, what's your theory? And it's like, I think it'll be like Netflix, where every 4 or 5 searches you get an ad. And I was like, oh, I hate that, but I can totally see that being the thing.
Takeover.
Maybe, yeah. Instead of just the Google ads at the
cable.
top of it, like a set, right? Yeah.
Reversion to 8
we all cut the cable, right? Now we only have HBO Max, we have Netflix, we have Disney Plus, we have Peacock. Yeah, we all cut the cable. We've solved that problem. Streaming service. I think it's going to be this. I think that it's a terrifying but kind of relevant thing that we might be heading in that direction for search as well, and maybe that's the way that monetization side. I know, I'm sorry, Tori, to
make me sad again.
I said at the beginning, "Oh, hype you guys up. I'll make you feel." And then by the end of it, we're just like, "Oh God, we're so screwed. The world is
Yeah,
ending."
I think the part that makes me sad is like knowing that, whatever the premium is, right? So like if you have Hulu, you can pay the premium so that you have no ads versus some ads. So like
Eventually, that
obviously,
won't be an option.
maybe obviously we'd probably all go for the premium because we're in a place of luxury that we can do that. But then also for those who aren't in that luxury and can't do that, then how are we now undemocratizing the information to be available? We're gatekeeping. Oh, I hate it. But
Let's get existential.
Just to bring it all down with terrible existential dread. That's welcome to Search with Candor, folks. That's what we're here to do.
Okay, before we go, I want us to say your like I love that it's indoor. Like Candor is cut off, but so what I can see is indoor on your
Just
screen
indoor.
above your
Yeah.
head, and it's
Yeah.
adorable. It's very stunning.
I've got. I know I showed you guys earlier, but I don't have the list because I've got Star Wars and Lego and stuff over my shoulder here as well. If I go out to the
That's
wider
cool.
shot, there we go. Some
Yeah.
Star Wars and Lego stuff, and even like a search board game and stuff here as well. Various nerdy things going on, and I think we're kind of known as a bit of a nerdy agency at this point. We literally have like rugs that are Star Wars rugs in our office. It's a bit.
Best kind.
We've got a reputation. So I guess I will shift the hope, bring some hope back, and shift the
Let's hear it.
spotlight back on you guys. To
We're bringing the hope now. Oh no.
yeah. I'm the dour British guy. You guys have got to bring the hope and the smile.
Gotta bring that American energy.
That's how. Yeah, you bring the American hope and smile, and I bring the like. Oh yeah, well I'm British, and well, everything's dead, and we've lived through a lot of terrible. We've done a lot of terrible things. Let's not talk about that. But oh yeah, welcome to being yeah. The
I mean,
constant
we've done a
existential
lot of
dread
terrible
being
things
British.
too.
We're just
Yeah,
behind, but we're on the same path.
yeah. You've got a few hundred years to catch up on that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I
the
don't know.
hopeful
We're
side of
working on
things-
it. Anyhow.
That's true. Like we said, exponential growth and all that. Exactly.
Yeah.
But in a hopeful side of things, do you think that learning JavaScript, if say the listeners of you out there are thinking about learning JavaScript, are thinking about getting into the more technical side of things and getting a better understanding of what they might encounter when it comes to site migrations and experiencing new sites and stuff like that, do you think now is the right time to get into it? I know you guys did an amazing training course with the guys over at Salt Bubble, Women in Tech as well. There's brilliant things out there to learn that kind of stuff. Do you see it as a positive move for developers and SEOs and stuff to start learning JavaScript now before, like you said, we get swept up and maybe the next thing comes along?
Yeah. I mean, it's always better to learn something before you have to, because once you have to do it quickly, and it's just so much more stressful. So I would definitely encourage you to explore now. I think it is legitimately fun. We worked really hard in our course with the site build team and the Women in Tech SEO team to make it really accessible and understand like the why, because it's not just the technical implementation. So can we break it down? Can we make those common problems as understandable as possible? Because at the end of the day, it's a business decision, right? Like, does this content need to be found in this place on this page? Does it matter or does it not? And so I think if you can ground it in that context, there's a lot more strategy involved than people give it credit for. They think it's all technical all the time. I think there's a lot more juicy SEO fun gray things that are going to be super, and once you're on the other side of like the scary, like there is joy to be had in exploring that, all these weird, fun, ugly problems.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And I would want to stress, like it is definitely learning JavaScript SEO.
yes,
I think a really common question we get is, do you need to learn how to code to be a technical SEO? I just want to shout from the rooftops.
Nope.
No. Now, if you want to learn how to code, more power to you. I love coding. It's super fun.
It will make you an excellent SEO, very likely.
Like, it's a very
But it's
useful
not the
skill
only
to
way.
have.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not a requirement. So, the gatekeeping that kind of happens with that, I just want to encourage people, if you can absolutely learn it and never learn to code at all, and you can be very successful.
Yep.
Just keeping those principles that Tori was talking about, of like, what is the business application? What is the context? What are our actual goals? And is this juice worth the squeeze? If development tells me it's going to take 3 sprints to do I want to use all my sprint points over the next 3 sprints to do it?
Yep.
Those are the kinds of judgment calls you have to make.
Yep. Sam can code.
100%.
She is an excellent SEO. I cannot code. I still think I'm kind of an excellent SEO. I mean, I'm biased, but like,
I think you're pretty all right, man. You're pretty good. Yeah, let's be honest. Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. Like I said, it's been a long time in the making. It's been an honor to finally actually sit down and have a conversation with you guys and go in all these terrifying existential directions that we went in, but hopefully ending on a few laughs and smiles along the way as well. I've mentioned the training course. I've mentioned Grey Dot. I know I'll put links for everything in the show notes, but if people want to follow you and what you guys are doing, Tori, how can people follow you and all the amazing stuff you're doing in SEO with Grey Dot and yourself?
Yep, you can look up Grey.co. You can look up me. You can Google me. You'll find me. I'm the only.
Hey, there you go.
I'm the only Tori
That's
Grey
the
you're gonna
ultimate
find.
SEO flex right there.
Yes.
And Sam, how about you?
So unfortunately, if you Google me, there's actually a more famous photographer, so it's harder to find me. And he's a man, so that happens. But you can follow us on LinkedIn, on Blue Sky.
Yep.
So we have left the other, or at least we have completely left the other channel.
Yeah.
But you can see us on there. We do have a YouTube channel. We don't post nearly as much, but certainly things going on there. And then I do this on every appearance. If you do identify as female and you have not joined Women in Tech SEO,
do it.
Please do. Even if you are not a tech SEO, if you're in content, if you're in UX, if you're in paid, it is a community for you. It is 100% free. It has changed my life for the better. And yes, absolutely join. If you don't identify as female, there's a number of wonderful communities. The SEO community by Noah Lerner is a great space. But yes, just get in with your community.
Find people who are there with you on the journey. It's better together.
It is.
100%. Absolutely. I'll put links for everything, both the communities, your guys' links, all the social stuff. No X links. Screw X. All the Blue Sky, all the LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff. So in the video description down below, please do click it. Please do follow these guys and check out all the amazing work you're doing. Thank you again for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And hopefully we'll get a chance to do it again sometime in the future.
Yes.
Thanks so much. This was fun.
Yes. Get to talk to you again soon.
And that wraps up this week's episode of Search with Candour. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Sam and Tori. I was, as I said, very excited to actually finally get to sit down and talk with them and discuss all the cool technical stuff about different JavaScript platforms and migrations and all that interesting things. And hopefully we'll have them back on again in the future. I know we kind of teased a couple of future episodes, so I'd love to have Sam and Tori back on in the future as well. It was a bit new for me editing a 3-person episode like this in this format, so hopefully you enjoyed the new kind of slimmer little video boxes for that conversation. Like I said, I've got some amazing guests coming up in the next few weeks as well. Let me just check on my schedule here, live on the show. Who have I got coming up? I have the likes of Erica Varanguli, who will be joining me talking about kind of everything. Erica and I have known each other for a while now, and we cover all sorts of crazy SEO theories, LLM created content, and all kinds of stuff. I'll be joined, of course, by Mark Williams-Cook every single month. That'll be by the end of March, essentially. Mark and I will be back in the Candour studio, the little one just over there, and we'll be talking all about the latest SEO news, any topics, any social posts we've seen that we think need discussing. I am joined by Grace Frolick, and we'll be talking about user journeys, how to track them, how to map them, how to use them properly, how to actually get customer data and use it properly to better understand your audiences and your users. I'm going to be joined by Tom Winter, talking all about how to use AI agents in your workflow to speed up a lot of SEO processes. I'm going to be joined a return to the show by Matt Coley, finally coming back on the show. Matt and I have stayed in touch since his brilliant podcast about basically his journey from working in an agency and going to become a freelancer. Now he's a freelancer creating his own agency. And basically, I'm going to catch up with Matt of what he's been up to over the last couple of years since we last spoke and what's been going on, and get an idea of his journey and what it's like going from a solo SEO freelancer to building your own small agency. And the big tease that I think was revealed in a newsletter a little while ago, the one and only Annie Mayhodge will be back here in studio, on camera, in person, joining me, the person behind Girl Power Marketing, the powerhouse of social media that is Annie Mayhodge, will be joining me once again. I think for the first time in like 2.5 years or something like that. I was amazed at how long it's been since Annie May and I sat in this very room and recorded, but we'll be in the nice new studio with the lovely chairs and the nice lighting and stuff. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And that takes us up all the way to like May, I think, plus all the live podcast stuff, plus all the Brighton content. We've got some amazing stuff coming up over the next few months. So please do stay tuned for all of that. And a couple of extra cool little things as well. I mentioned a conference we're going to be running at the end, maybe in September. Yeah, pencil that in. Mark and I will hopefully be able to announce venues and dates and all that kind of stuff coming up very soon. So stay tuned for Search Norwich XL news as well. If you stayed right until the end through all my rambling and stuff towards the end of the episode, thank you so much. I hugely appreciate your support. Please do comment and let me know if you have any ideas of any guests you'd like to see on the show. Anything like that, please do let me know in the comments down below or hit us up on social media, whichever is your preferred way of contacting us. Just let me know. I love to have conversations with you guys, discover new people, and highlight the best and brightest in SEO on this podcast. With all of that out of the way, enough rambling from me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Have a lovely week.